Okay. I hope you all had a wonderful C2E2. It's a shame it's a one-day con this year. Who's applauding that? Like, yeah, thank God it's over. Oh my God. You know, cut back. You know how much gas costs. So real quick, we're just gonna go down the line. Just give a super quick introduction of who we are. I'm Doug Walker. I work for a company called Channel Awesome. We do YouTube videos and like movie reviews and comedy and stuff like that. And next to me is.
I'm Brad Jones. I play the cinema snob. I spotlight different, a lot of exploitation movies of the 70s and 80s and mellow movies sometimes.
I'm Malcolm Ray. I'm an actor. I play various characters on the Nostalgia Critic and Fanscription, and I'm also a voice actor.
Hi, I'm Ayana Wade. I also work for Channel Awesome as a performer and a writer occasionally on shows like Nostalgia Critic or Awesome Comics or Top 5 or Orbit Report or $20 Cosplay. The list goes on and on.
I am Heather Roos. I'm the Channel Awesome Twitch Queen. Yes, that is my official title. And I am also occasionally on shows like Nostalgia Critic, etc., etc., etc.
I'm Walter. I also work for Channel Awesome. Various video series, Twilight Zone, where I cover all the episodes of Twilight Zone, Batman, we talk about Batman the animated series, and a bunch of other stuff. So as you can tell, we're very obsessed with media, particularly like movies and TV shows. And one of the things that at least to me, and I'm sure to a lot of other people, is that films, in many respects, are art. They can be interpreted in many different ways. In the same way someone can look at any work of art, you see something like an artist alley, you think, man, that really grabs me, that connects with me, or something else might be like, nah, that doesn't connect. Someone could have the exact opposite feeling, like what you like, maybe you don't connect with, but something else really grabs you in like a unique way. Movies are the same way, and even though we love to get in arguments like Siskel and Ebert, where we're just like, no, you son of a bitch, here's why you're wrong, you know, about this film. How can anybody like this? I found that over the years, even though I played a character going to Star Trek, like, it's angry if you disagree with them, that through the disagreements, you can actually find out more about a person if you listen and legit share, instead of like trying to persuade and fight and stuff like that. And you can actually find out a lot. And that's one of the reasons I started doing this panel. A lot of people like talking about, because this is mainly going to be about you guys. It's going to be talking about movies that either you love and everybody hates, or you hate and everybody loves. And we're going to talk about why for a little bit and see what we can find out. And there's actually a lot of various reasons someone might have a differing opinion. And before we open it up to you, it's only fair if all of us go down the line and talk about a movie that everybody disagrees with us on. Actually, there's so many now, I'm trying to think. I usually choose a different one each time. Let's do, I like X-Men Last Stand, the third X-Men movie. That's the one that Brett Ratner directed. And I liked it because at the time, that was the closest to an X-Men movie I felt like I got. It had the action, it had the comic book deaths, it looked really nice, it felt pretty epic, but I knew the problems with it. It didn't amount to much, like they just killed off like 3 or 4 characters, like that, you know, and then, but they did, or they didn't, whatever. But to me, seeing Kelsey Grammer's Beast was phenomenal, seeing them move the bridge was phenomenal. The action scenes at the end, I really felt like I'm watching an X-Men movie, and not like a very low budget, we're trying to be modern and cool, we all wear black kind of thing. Like it was the first time I felt like I was watching an X-Men movie. And I had a real good time with it. But when somebody says, yeah, I hate that movie, I do get it. I do understand it. But I legit really get into that film and think it's a lot of fun. How about you?
I guess with Prey out this weekend, I'll say I've always loved Predator 2. The first sequel to it. It definitely has its audience now. Like when it does. It found an audience over time. When it first came out, it didn't get very good reviews, but I love how it did a wildly different thing than the first one did by putting it in this like near future LA, but also like the first one, how it's like there's a movie going on, then the Predator comes into it, and in the second one, it's like this cops versus drug dealer movie with Danny Glover as the
first time, but once upon a time, I felt like the only one that liked the third Sam Raimi Spider-Man movie. Yeah, okay.
Yeah, there you go.
more confidence than that. Yeah, I really like it because it's just got Sam Raimi's like stamp of approval all over it. Just his identity, and you could tell that he didn't want to do Spider-Man 3 in the way that the production companies wanted him to. So you could tell he was just kind of trolling. He was like, "All right, you want Sandman in there? I'm gonna put Sandman." You could tell he had the most love for Sandman. He's like, "Oh, you want Hobgoblin in there? Okay, I guess we'll throw him in there." And then Venom was in there. You could tell he didn't care about Venom. He just felt like a troll.
Just like the Venom movies.
Tobey Maguire doing this like, emo jazz kind of dance down the streets of New York. It was fun. I had a lot of fun watching that movie. I still watch it for a laugh.
I know. Of course, have forgotten every movie I've ever seen. Now that it's my turn. Like, the only thing that I can think of, and it's not like very, I don't think it's like very much like everyone knows this movie, but most of my film friends that I've talked to about Crimson Peak, they dislike it. I really love it.
Oh yeah, I like that.
Well, there you go. See,
I liked
so
Crimson
it's
Peak.
not very controversial, but it is a movie that I enjoyed that people I know disliked, and I will argue through my teeth because I think I really like stylized stuff and also just the costuming. I'm a sucker for costuming though, so if there is a bad movie and it has good costumes, I just still watch it because it's pretty.
Now, good question. Did you like the ending of the movie?
Yeah.
Okay, that was the only thing I didn't like.
There you go. It works. My comment still stands. Perfect. Also, I do always, side note, find it interesting when people assume that because I'm in a Nostalgia Critic episode, that like if you dislike something, everyone will like argue with me, like, why did you dislike it? I'm like, whoa. Doug and I have very different opinions about a lot of different things, and actually I disagree, and we'll have conversations about things like that, like Mary Poppins or whatever,
I mean, it helps that she's always wrong. That's it.
And
No, I mean, we do the same thing. We do say, like, oh, would you like, oh, really? I never thought about that. It's kind of fun to do.
Truly.
Go ahead.
Last Jedi is easily in my top 3 Star Wars films ever.
Oh!
Love Last Jedi. It waffles between second and third for me. Walter, your face right now. I love Last Jedi. And for a long time, I was like, I can't see that. Everyone's so mad about this movie. I can't, but like, honestly, it waffles between my second and third favorite Star Wars movie. I love Last Jedi. I thought it was really interesting. They tried to do things that were different. They did a lot of growth with characters that then Rise of Skywalker immediately shot down, but I don't want to talk about that.
Too soon.
And I know a lot of times people are like, oh, it's just so boring because the casino planet, what was that side story? Like, what, Star Wars movies have never had a little side story every now and then? Like, that happens.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that happens sometimes in the Star Wars universe. I don't know.
Yep.
Right.
The last time I brought this movie up at a panel, I got booed. But I like Rocky V.
Hell yeah.
Ah.
Oh my god, I love that pity applause. Like, oh, I guess because he got booed. So I grew up, I'm a huge Rocky fan. And Rocky V, it was one of the only VHSs I had. I had like 3 and 5 on VHS, so I watched those a lot. So it is kind of like a home thing for me. Like, it reminds me of like when I was younger, but 5 just has like, they tried to take it back to the first 2 movies, and a lot of it didn't work, but some of it did. And that scene with Mickey, the flashback, and Mick's Gym is one of the best scenes in the entire franchise, and I'll argue that forever. And yeah, I mean, that's so, wow, that's fantastic.
Walter's used to getting booed, so he doesn't know what to do with applause.
But yeah, I understand. Just like point him and go, boo, whoever you are. And I understand why people don't like that movie because it totally changed the formula that worked so well with the first 4 movies. And there's stuff that doesn't work in it for sure, but I have a real soft spot for them at least trying to bring it back after Rocky IV was this giant world-spanning movie. So I like Rocky V. I'm not sorry about it. You will be.
Good job, buddy.
Cool. So, all right. So now we're gonna open it up to all of you. It looks like we have 2 mics, but I think we'll just do the one that's closest to us. I think that makes the most sense. So if you got a movie that you
what it is.
You got this, buddy.
Tell us why as well. You know, we get everyone going, oh, like that. But then afterwards, when we hear white people go, oh.
Army will be even more so cool. Go ahead, everybody.
So this movie is.
Well, guys, all hard to hear. Go ahead.
So this movie is kind of panned by critics, but it'll be probably mixed back here. But Hook.
Oh yeah.
Ooh,
I
look.
know I'm dazzled by Robin Williams and the visuals and like Dustin Hoffman because like it's. I don't know why I love it, but I do, and it might be a nostalgia thing as well.
Right.
Sure.
Probably part of it. I absolutely love Hook, so I'm right there with you on that. I don't really. We're sorry, Dante canceled, by the way. I don't understand why people hate it. I mean, there's still a contingency of people who really, really don't like it, but I mean, enough time has gone by where it's like, why? What is wrong with this movie exactly? I mean, I understand it could have been something else. There's a whole like history behind the production of it, where it's supposed to be a musical, and there's all these like other things that were supposed to happen, and it didn't turn out the way that like Spielberg originally thought it would. But I love that movie. I think a lot of people like my age love that movie.
Yeah, I liked it too. I grew up with it. My least favorite thing in there, which is sadly a lot of, are the kids, like Pan's kids and a lot of the Lost Boys. Again, except for Review, he was cool. But I see I got what they were doing with it, so I let it go. My favorite stuff, I love that he's legitimately trying to find his childhood. It really is like this psychological deep dive, and it's pretty fascinating, you know. He's literally suffering from Peter Pan envy. That's pretty brilliant. So no, I think there's a lot of people out there, and I was shocked when I looked back to find that critics didn't like that movie either. Maybe there was just a lot of hype around it because it was Spielberg, and everyone got a different idea about it. But yeah, no, you're definitely not alone on that, man.
Yeah, I guess yeah. Thanks.
I don't mind the first two Fantastic Four movies.
No, I was gonna say the original, but you're right. They've only made one sequel. The Silver Surfer and the one before that.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. What do you like about it?
The interaction between Torch and Thing, they're just using their powers like a normal person would. And the worst part though is the villains. Both of them go down in a second.
Dude, honestly, if you look at Doom as like a comedic villain, he actually is pretty funny. I just love in this creepy outfit. There's one scene where he just goes like that. I love that. Like you can't make that sound like intimidating, like in that mask.
Is the interaction relatable or just entertaining? What is it about their like interaction?
They've been around with each other for a while, so they just play like two people they know what gets on each other's nerves, and so they just keep pushing each other.
The two of them specifically, because
and there's a family aspect to it as well, which
it's funny because everybody always brings it up about the Fantastic Four, and I always felt like that was missing in those. Like I never saw that connection because so many people do bring that up, and maybe because I saw The Incredibles as well, literally about a family. Yeah, I will say this. I don't, because it got so slammed when it came out. I did think it would be worse, and it was not quite as bad as I thought it would be. But now, okay, did you have any hang-ups or anything with the fact that they never actually fought crime in any of the movies? That's one of my biggest problems.
Because other heroes exist in the Marvel universe. They fight crime over there. Yeah, the Fantastic Four are the super scientists, so if you need somebody smart to do something, you go with them.
I did always like that angle, because I don't know the comic well. I like the idea. It's like you have the power. What are they gonna do? Well, they're scientists. Here's this giant building. You just figure it out. I thought that was unique. I thought that was actually kind of a cool idea that the whole city was just a great. Just you stay there. Don't destroy us with your powers or whatever. Just figure them out, and then we'll go from there. So yeah, I kind of like that setup too. So awesome. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Hey there.
Hi. So I have two movies, both of which are only out of DC. One I've seen recently, which I want to talk about. One I haven't seen in a while, which I want to get out of the way. One I haven't seen in a while is Batman and Robin. I loved it as a kid.
No, that always comes up. I guarantee you someone's going to bring up the Star Wars prequels.
I love Batman and Robin.
I watched it as a kid. It was the perfect toy commercial.
Yeah.
It's just what it is. What it is.
It's also, Batman need more nipples, in my opinion. put more nipples on the bat suit.
It changes like from one outfit to another. Amazing. That's perfect.
Now, okay, now, do you also like it because it's one of those where it's like, oh, it's so silly, I love it, or do you legit like, no, this is like a good story, this is good.
Silly, just
Okay.
not too crazy.
Honestly, I mean, and I feel like more and more people come around to it, and me too. I mean, I was angry because I'm like, dude, we just had 2 Keaton movies, and now we have the Schumacher man. It's like, there was no good Batman at that time. You know, the closest was maybe Batman Beyond. You know, there was nothing Batman related that was like dark and gritty. You know, apart from maybe the comics, which makes sense.
Yeah, thank God we have all that dark and gritty Batman now.
Yeah, no, I know.
Definitely
But,
not too much.
but if you go in, yeah, with that mindset, it's like, you know what, just have a good. That's a movie I can watch any 5 minutes of that and laugh my ass off and have a great time. It's after the 5 minutes I get bored. That's the major problem with the movie for me, because I could accept it as like an Adam West comedy, but it just goes a little too long. But yes, he was saying it's colorful, it looks great. The models, the city sets are fantastic.
It's fun. It's fun to watch. I like watching things that are fun to watch. I don't always have to have like deep emotional experiences when watching movies. There's only so many movies you can watch like that. Sometimes it's fun to have fun watching a movie, and that's definitely one of those movies. Every time I watch it, it's easy to digest, it's fun, I like it.
And what's the other one?
The second one is Man of Steel.
Yeah, like it, dislike it. Don't fly, yeah, don't know things.
I'm more mixed, but in a more positive sense. I'm curious, like, what you find off-putting about it.
No, you know, it's funny, because I thought, oh, people are going to hate this movie when it came out, and a lot of people liked it. I was trying to figure out why, and I did talk to people who enjoyed it, and I think they did, like, in my opinion, I think it's hitting familiar notes that they were missing with Superman, you know, even though to me, story and character-wise, it didn't make sense, it still felt big, where something like Superman Returns did not feel big. And that one I think was maybe a little closer to trying to be more of like the character and story. It didn't quite get there either. But it was boring, it was dull, it did not feel like this grand epic adventure where, you know, to Snyder's credit, everything he does, whether it's good or bad, it feels big. And I think that's what people want to see maybe number 1 with Superman. Yes, they want the humorous, they want the man side, but the first word is super. They want something super. You know what I mean? And that did give you a lot of big visuals and big fights, and even the story was told in. If I watched that on mute, I feel like I would like it. And I'm really not kidding. It sounds weird, but the visuals in that are, and all of Zack Snyder's, I mean, he's clearly a visual storyteller. And I think we saw that with the Justice League cut. Is that, I mean, so much of that, I mean, it was so long, but most of the length is just dedicated to the visuals and setting it up and feeling the atmosphere. Like, that's how he tells the story. So I think a lot of that sort of centered around there.
Right. What I kind of got out of it is that I can understand why it's a very, very off-putting reboot and new take on a character where it ends him snapping the villain's neck and bloody murder. But I think it's one of those things where it has like the seeds for great ideas, but it never kind of gives itself the opportunity to grow naturally, because I think the story wants to tell is like, imagine being this god where you sort of like, where no one can relate to you, no one can understand your problems, and you have all these selfish desires, and you just sometimes want to get into it, but you're given this responsibility that you never wanted to have in the first place. And so Clark's journey is to sort of like find out, like try to settle all that and make sense of like what he wants and his journey and all that. Where it kind of lost me is just that, again, it's dull, probably needs to like rush a little bit faster in terms of editing, and the bombasticness at the very end just kind of turns me off a little bit.
Yeah, and everything you mentioned there, I see that visually.
Yeah.
They start talking, and they start actually doing various things, you know, like what Clark's father is saying to him, like this doesn't, like the Christopher Reeve one I think has both. It has the visual, and it does have the good writing as well. And maybe that's, you know, a harsh thing to compare it to too, because that's like one of the great superhero, you know, movies ever. It's literally the same thing, Superman, so. No, that's very cool though, thank you so much.
Thank you. Right.
Hey. So I actually have two movies. One that I hate.
We'll let you do two. After this, everybody pick one.
Oh, sorry. I didn't know. Sorry. So one that I hate and one that I like. Both of them are adaptations of the same source material. The latter is not a remake of the former. And I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for this, but I hate Willy Wonka and the Chocolate Factory, and I like Charlie and the Chocolate Factory.
You're getting canned.
Hey, we all have terrible opinions here. Listen to this person's terrible opinion. I have a very important question for you.
Yes?
Now, did you read the source material before seeing the movies?
Yes, I read the source material before seeing the movies, and
the Burton one is much more like the book.
Correct.
Mhm.
I also was that type of person. Anytime I watched a movie that was based off a novel that I had read before, I did that thing where I immediately was like, bad. You're not on page. I don't like you didn't have this terrible minutia that was painstakingly written out for 3 chapters. That's a movie. So interesting.
Yeah.
Now, with Willy Wonka, I think we see why you like Charlie. It's much more like the book. What did you enjoy about, or what did you not enjoy, I should say, about Willy Wonka? Just that it was different, or there was other stuff?
Well, part of it just seemed kind of insulting in the sense that, the creators of Willy Wonka pretty much listed Roald Dahl as the only screenwriter for the movie, when in reality, the screenplay was rewritten several times behind his back, and he was often shunted out of making decisions. And then
this is more like a behind-the-scenes thing. You didn't like.
Yeah, and then they're just like, oh no, he loves this movie. This has got his blessing. See, he's the one who wrote it, and that just really bothered me a lot. On top of it not being as faithful to the original story that I loved so much.
Okay, that's it. No, this isn't class.
That's why we can only do one movie and not 2.
And that's the first time I've heard a reason somebody disliked a movie because of the behind-the-scenes stuff in this panel, which is interesting. I never thought about that. And I've heard interpretation, like you said, like I read the book, and this was different, it's not faithful and stuff like that. But that's the first time I've heard stuff about behind-the-scenes, and that's really interesting.
Yeah, and then Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. It was like one of the first Tim Burton movies that I ever watched. Either that or Pee-wee's Big Adventure. My mom does not like Tim Burton's style, so I wasn't able to watch a lot of that stuff when I was younger. But when I got to decide for myself, I started with that. And when the music dropped at the title reveal, I just fell in love with it, and I was like, I am totally invested with whatever crazy weirdness this is going to go down, because I feel like this will be a much more faithful version of the book, and I feel like it was. And it's like one of my top 5 favorite Tim Burton movies of all time, and I've never watched the 71 version since, pretty much.
No, that's interesting. No, like I said, it's fascinating that you're focusing more on the behind-the-scenes stuff. Because I can get in the way. We're seeing that with The Flash right now. A lot of people wanting to do this movie because of what's happening in real life with one of the actors. So that is understandable when you bring that up. Awesome. Well, thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for humoring me with the 2.
It's scary to share your opinion. Let's not think each other. Do it quietly. Our partners next.
Go ahead.
I always get booed about this one because it's an extremely unpopular opinion, and I think it's because it's like how Walter said, it's a home thing for a lot of people, but I cannot stand Elf.
Is it because of Will Ferrell?
It's entirely because of Elf.
Real quick, because one of these streams that we do is like a Christmas stream. We're just giving out, sort of these random, little handout gifts and stuff like that. We pick a number and a raffle and stuff. And one of them was, the Blu-ray of Elf. And like the whole stream, the chat just ripped it apart. Like, who's gonna be prized with that?
There are people in my friend group who they gather around and watch it annually because it's like a tradition for them and they just love it and it's like their favorite movie ever and I'm like, I can't do it.
A part of me is a little fascinated because when I saw that movie, I thought it was okay. I actually thought Will Ferrell was the only good thing in it. I love the idea. I didn't think the jokes were that funny, but I liked his energy in it. And Will Ferrell people seem to love or hate. It's either their humor or it's not. And I do get it. At first I'm like, well, what's wrong with this guy? And then years later I'm like, yeah. And like maybe when I saw some real bad movies of his, I'm like, all right, I gotta get it. Yeah, I think for a lot of people, A, they do grow up with it. B, I think they do get into how much he's throwing his all into what's essentially a very silly, childish idea, but he is just giving everything to it. But at the same time, but at the same time, you're right. If it's not directed in a way that you feel like can hit, the majority of people, way of doing it. And I'm telling you, it's like, you think like everybody disagrees with me. It's more like, I've seen a lot of people